Oh, how's it going, internet? Yeah, I was hanging out on my couch. It's a Sunday night, just having a chill, relax movie day, kind of. Well, a movie night. I went to the movie theater earlier. I saw Yorgos Lanthimos' newest film, Kinds of Kindness, um, which, I'm actually very kind of split on. I'm very split on that movie. I've kind of liked Yorgos Lanthimos for the most part, like most of his filmography up until about Poor Things. I really disliked Poor Things. Like, kind of, I had a visceral negative reaction to Poor Things. Something about it, I just found it so fucking off-putting and so like cringe. It's just kind of like bourgeois, degenerate bullshit. You know, these people, these millennial filmmakers. Because I saw MAXXXINE last night, the new Ty West movie, and I recently revisited the other two movies in the trilogy, X and Pearl. And there's something about this age of just creatives in general. They're completely like creatively bankrupt. They have nothing really to say. I think, I was thinking about it earlier, and I was just like, I feel like the way that celebrity has gotten kind of away from us. We're kind of they're our version of royalty as our actors and our directors and shit like that. So new actors and new directors, I don't maybe I'm just overthinking this, but it's just like they don't live lives. Like nobody does anything anymore. People aren't going out there like getting divorced, or I'm sorry, getting married, having kids, getting divorced, getting remarried, working other jobs before they're in the industry, even other jobs in the industry, for Christ's sakes. But people used to have like more just fuller lives. They were just more interesting people. Especially if you go back to kind of the boomerish generation. The Jack Nicholson. I've been watching tons of interviews about Jack Nicholson, like people that have worked with Jack Nicholson, kind of sharing anecdotes. And one of the things that makes people like Jack Nicholson interesting is that before Jack Nicholson was really an actor, he was just a regular dude. Like he got to kind of live a regular person's life. Harrison Ford's kind of similar in that. I know he's a gruff dude. He's probably a prick, but like there's a groundedness to him. He feels like a real person. And a lot of people from that generation just kind of feel that way. Nowadays, everything feels so slight and ephemeral and ultimately meaningless. Especially when I'm thinking about like that MAXXXINE movie, that whole trilogy, Ty West's trilogy, X, Pearl, and MAXXXINE. Like, what are those movies about? Like, what are they about? What's your favorite character from the X trilogy? That's not Pearl or MAXXXINE. Because I was actually, I saw him when I saw MAXXXINE last night. There was just like a group of people hanging out, waiting for people to get out of the bathroom and shit after the movie got let out. And I just kind of went up to a group and I was like, oh, hey, I like kind of talk about movies. I review movies on the internet. And I was just kind of wondering what you guys thought of the movie. And it seems like it was pretty mixed. Some people thought it was kind of boring. So a couple of people really liked it. But I asked them. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I was like, what do you think that movie was about? Like, what do you think it's about? And then people just started describing the plot of the movie. And I was like, oh, yeah, well, that's the plot of the movie, but what do you think it was about? Like, what does it mean? Nobody had any fucking clue. Nobody even had an idea or a notion. Like, I guess I could be charitable and say, what is it about, like, the sociopathic nature of wannabe starlets? Which I don't think is what it's intending to do, but that's definitely there, right? The craven nature of wanting to be famous. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? The movie doesn't really have much interesting to say about that. It doesn't have much to say about it at all. And MAXXXINE was even worse because it was kind of pretentious in a way that it was like kind of like trying to make a statement about, A ideas and B movies. It's so on the nose. It's so cringe. It's like it's something that would have been like something like Kevin Smith would have written in 1995. Even Kevin Smith wouldn't write something like that in current year. You can't get away with that shit anymore. Just like, it's the Tarantino knockoff shit. It's awful. It's awful. And because for a long time with Ty West, I'd always kind of not, I guess, giving him a pass. I was kind of indifferent. I remember liking House of the Devil a lot when it came out. I think everybody did. It was novel. It wasn't the norm, and it came out kind of on the back of a lot of grindhouse stuff coming out, right? Like, they had Tarantino, like I had mentioned, Robert Rodriguez. They put out their movie, the double feature Grindhouse. Hobo with a Shotgun came out around that time, etc. So there were things that were kind of throwbacks, retro. It was cool to see somebody kind of just mess with that aesthetic and maybe revisit it. Satanic horror, it can be a lot of fun. It had kind of gone out of vogue. Nobody was really doing much with it. Had a cool cast, Had, Francis Dollarhide there. I love that guy. I can't remember his name off the top of my head for some reason. I'm sure it'll come to me in like 2 minutes as I'm talking about something else. Tom Noonan. There you go. I got there. But so, I like that. The Innkeepers, I remember at the time, like when it came out, thinking, oh, this is okay. I think it actually had some kind of interesting subtext. It was, at least there was a little bit there. I mean, because there's inherent subtext in just ghost stories in general, so it's kind of cheating a little bit, but it is what it is. And what else did he do? In the Valley of Violence, the one with Ethan Hawke and Travolta, I saw that. I didn't really think much about that. I was kind of indifferent about it. It was kind of like a Man with No Name movie, but done in the style of like a middling 50s Western. Like a TV show almost, right? It's kind of what it reminded me of a lot, actually. It just reminded me of like watching something from like Gunsmoke or something, maybe. I could be wrong about that. Like I said, I've actually only seen that one once. But they just don't like leave very much of an impression on you. I mean, like House of the Devil probably was the one that left the biggest impression, just because of the novelty of it, and legitimately the end of the movie is pretty shocking. And I think I watched it a lot when it came out as well. I was definitely probably on some sort of hipster train. I was a young man. You'll have to forgive me. But yeah, so then I remember when X was coming out, and I was like, oh, cool, a new Ty West movie. It's going to do some sort of like a, 70s grindhouse horror aesthetic thing. And at the time when it first came out, I didn't really care for it. I was like, oh, whatever. It was kind of indifferent. I watched it again. I think I liked it a little bit more, but I still was kind of like cool on it. Then I watched it in anticipation of seeing MAXXXINE. I rewatched X, watched Pearl for the first time, and then I watched MAXXXINE. And what it really revealed to me was something that should have been obvious to me before, but like I said, I didn't really think about Ty West very much, is that it's just indicative of everything wrong with modern filmmakers, kind of like what I was talking about earlier. It's so derivative, and it wears its influences so hard on its sleeves, like it's trying to just emulate things that Ty West likes. And not really in a very coherent fashion. It doesn't really all come together in any meaningful way. Like, again, I say, what is that movie about? What are those movies about? What are they about? Are they about, like, getting older, the passage of time, regrets? Yeah, those things are there just because it's inherent in the concept and the setup. But the movie itself, like, Ty West has nothing to say about that. So it makes it very forgettable. It's very boring. Like, I've seen X 3 times. I barely remember like anything specific about it. Like, I remember kind of the look of it. I remember a few sequences that are kind of, memorable for being gory or kind of weird. Watching two elderly people have sex is, it's a thrill. It's a thrill. And X is also it's like nihilistic and mean-spirited. And I could probably forgive a lot of that stuff if I felt like it had anything to say. That's the difference between somebody like Ty West and Yorgos Lanthimos. While they're still pulling from like this incredibly shallow, very different pools, but it's a shallow pool. For Yorgos Lanthimos is like whatever the New York Times or the New Yorker is writing about, apparently. And Ty West is just every gross horror movie and genre flick he's ever seen. I don't know why I said gross, but I did. Because I was thinking of fucking Pearl and her Harry or Henry or whatever his name is having sex. That's why. Because it wants you to feel viscerally disgusted by it. The elderly people are the monsters of the movie because they're fucking elderly. It's not good. It's not, I don't understand people that defend that movie or even like it, really. I mean, like, sure, is it in a vacuum? There's some scenes and sequences I think that probably work on their own, and you could remove them out of the movie and just kind of look at it as some sort of case study of scene construction or something, and it works. It's because he's doing somebody else's thing. Pearl is a little bit better than X. I liked it a little bit more than X. It's a little bit more just entertaining. He's trying to kind of emulate a different style. I think Pearl takes place in like 1918 or 1912. One of those times. And so it's trying to be kind of old fashioned. But it's like old Hollywood, so it doesn't even really kind of work because it's like Technicolor. Everything's very bright. It's a little bit more bombastic. I mean, it's the kind of movie you feel at any time like Pearl could burst out into song. Like that's kind of the general atmosphere, the tone of it. Especially in the first like 20 minutes. The first 20 minutes of Pearl, I was kind of like, maybe we're doing something here. Because I had just watched X again. I was like, that movie kind of sucks. So then I pop in Pearl. I'm like, oh, cool. Maybe I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm like, well, they started with X, and then him and Mia Goth kind of through that process get together, start developing Pearl and MAXXXINE. So maybe there's something else there. By the end of the movie, no, there isn't really much there. It's just a series of events that you watch. Pearl, I don't even know if she really changes very much as a character, even throughout the entire story. X has the same problem with MAXXXINE. Like, why do I care about MAXXXINE? What is her personality? She's spunky and she's tenacious and she's going to do whatever it takes. I will not live the life I feel I don't deserve. Is that the mantra? And then once we get to MAXXXINE's very similar to Pearl and X. It has the same problems, but it's even worse. It's even worse because there's like a pretentiousness to MAXXXINE. There's a smugness to MAXXXINE. It goes back into kind of being mean-spirited and nihilistic and pointless. And again, MAXXXINE, which is crazy, she's kind of a passenger throughout most of the story, even though she is the central focus of the story. You don't really learn too much about her in any way that's meaningful to make you care or invest in her until there's like a third act reveal about who her father is and her background. And it's all done in like this big villain's monologue. And it's like, well, maybe if I knew some of that before, it could have helped me inform like what I was watching and I could have been invested. You could have set up things, like there could have been like red herrings and shit like that. But the movie is so basic and so unsophisticated that it doesn't even attempt anything like that. It just try to do cool scenes, man. Just cool scenes and 80s fucking needle drops, bro. Because that's what the kids like. That's what's cool. I didn't get it. I will just say that. I don't get the appeal of it. Not to say I don't get the movie. I understand what the movie's doing. I think Ty West accomplished what he set out to accomplish, was to make kind of an homage to these kind of slasher city, LA, New York, grimy city movies. The porn stuff is just, it's there to be there. It's just kind of salacious. Most of the characters in MAXXXINE do not act like people from the 80s. They act like people from 2024. Like there's in one particular character who's like this gay black punk rocker that works at the video store. Oh my God, dude. I was like, well, I'm sure people like this existed. I don't know if they acted like a dude who has like a fucking Grindr account, but that's on Twitter. He's a social media influencer. He's a TikToker. Talk like fucking TikTokers. Kevin Bacon was fun, but Kevin Bacon was he was fun because he was allowed to have fun. It's like fun to see Kevin Bacon do something silly. But it's not, there's no investment there. Even for him as an actor, it's all affectation. It's not like, there's nothing there. And the way the movie ends is, I struggle to come up with like, what is this movie about? Like, what am I supposed to be taking away from it? I know what happens in the story. I got all the plot. I understood it. Mia Goth is actually okay. She's all right. Mia Goth's all right. A little crazy. She's all right. Like her performance is okay, I guess, but there isn't a lot there. And I saw a few interviews with Mia Goth, and I watched a few seconds of them. I didn't watch a ton, but uh, doesn't seem like there's a lot going on. I'm sorry, I just don't. I don't. I just if this is the fruits of their labor, if this is what they're expressing, then like what? What? Is the bar this fucking low in 2024? It's honestly just kind of depressed me. I got a Regal Plus unlimited membership for like a couple months. I think I got it through like October. And because I want to get out more, I want to start going to the movie theater more. And a week in, I'm just depressed. It's just made me really depressed to see the state of modern cinema, because watching something in a movie theater, you're really locked in, right? Like you're really paying attention in a way that maybe you can't when you're home. I have like 2 kids, like shit always going on. There's always something happening, always just something going on. So sometimes it's hard to actually be able to sit and give a movie your full attention, but in the theater you really can, and you can really kind of get into the nitty-gritty with it, really analyze it, really looking for something deeper. And it's been a kind of a sad state of affairs. Kinds of Kindness is better than MAXXXINE because the production is better. Like Yorgos Lanthimos is a better director. He's a better aestheticist. He understands like the least that his stories require some type of subtext. They're mostly allegorical, especially in Kinds of Kindness. Kinds of Kindness is a little bit of a return to kind of, I would say, like Killing of the Sacred Deer, The Lobster kind of vibe. It's like 3 short stories that are kind of like thematically connected about relationships. It's bourgeois degenerate bullshit. It's just about like polyamory and couple swapping and sex cults. But those things are kind of in the background of the actuals. Like you could actually tell very similar stories, if not the same story, with slight augmentation to not make them like have anything to do with sex, and they wouldn't be that much different. It's just to add this layer of, I guess, just provocation on top of everything. It's so interesting. And like I said, it's people my age and a little bit older, like this middle class, middle-aged malaise. Go to key parties and stuff. This is just what normal people do. You get together with your friends, you fucking wife swap. Apparently that's what everybody's doing. Nick Arcade's doing it. Fucking Jesse Plemons and Emma Stone and Kinds of Kindness are doing it. Everybody's doing it. It's taking the world by storm. It was so funny because it kind of just felt mildly validating, because I've been talking about this kind of stuff for like a year. I'm like, look, this is what they're just normalizing it. For some reason, this is just some bourgeois fascination. And the thing about rich people is they are insulated. Oftentimes they are kind of insulated from the consequences of some of the things that they do. Not to say they don't suffer any types of consequence or it doesn't affect their lives at all, but the way it affects a regular person's life is way more devastating, just on a kind of a basic level. Now, I'm not even talking about a material or an emotional level. I mean more on like a material level. Like it's going to break up your marriage. You're going to fucking lose your house. You're going to end up getting divorced, paying child support, paying alimony, whatever. It wreaks havoc on people's lives and they can't fucking afford it. And it also, is just, one of these things throughout human history that we've socially evolved to understand, like this creates the most stability. It's almost like it's so crazy the how much progress happened after we figured out like, monogamy, nuclear family, like create a building block, create stability. But I mean, that movie's like all the actors are great. Jesse Plemons is one of his best performances ever in all 3 different stories, because all 3 stories have the same actors just playing different roles. But he's really good. Jesse Plemons is really great. Emma Stone was okay. I mean, she's Emma Stone. I'm not a big fan of her, honestly. I find her kind of annoying. Margaret Qualley was in it. Willem Dafoe is great. Willem Dafoe is always good. But that's the difference. Like, it's just the craftsmanship, the attention to detail, and it is original. It's original. It feels so, like it's unique. It's got its own idiosyncrasies. It's not like something like MAXXXINE was just this like a homage pastiche for 90 minutes, and doesn't feel very coherent. Doesn't feel very meaningful. Kinds of kindness. The subtext of it is it's kind of just about the nature of relationships and sex and sexual dynamics. There's some stuff about patriarchy and all that kind of shit. There's little echoes of Poor Things, in Kinds of Kindness, but I was pleasantly surprised by it for the most part. Like, if I were to give it, like, say I would give it a star rating, like out of 5, I'd give it 3 stars. I'd give it 3 stars. I'd give it 3 stars. Yeah. Say it again, Lord. I'll give it 3 stars. But so when I got home, I was just like, man, I'm so depressed. I'm so depressed. I gotta cleanse the palate, dude. I gotta cleanse the palate. And I on the Kino Lorber sale, I ended up picking up the 4K of Night of the Hunter, Charles Laughton's Night of the Hunter. The only movie that guy directed. He was an actor, a great actor. But this is the only movie that he really directed. He did some kind of like co-directing on other movies, but I think Burgess Meredith got the director's credit for that one. But wow, what a fucking movie. Robert Mitchum, Shelley Winters, dude. It's kind of a dark fairy tale in a way, about the kind of the loss of innocence, and has 2 great child actors in it, 2 great performances by these kids. My God. And Robert Mitchum. Robert fucking Mitchum, dude. My God. It's the preacher. The preacher Harry. So good. And it just blows anything that you're ever going to see coming out of a theater right now. It just blows it away. And it's old-fashioned. There's things about that are kind of corny, maudlin, simplistic, but it captures something about the human experience, about the essence of being a human being, and about being a kid, and the nature of evil, and how evil distorts and twists everything that's good, all the representations of good. This is what con men do. They lie. Lie is an evil. It's an evil thing to do. And Robert Mitchum, obviously, his character really cranks that up to 11, as the kids say, with his evil. But it's such a menacing thing, and it's got such a gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous look to it. The cinematography is next level. It's almost like expressionistic. It reminded me a lot of Orson Welles' Macbeth, actually. It takes a lot from the stage, and the way it's blocked and the way it's lit. It's got this great kind of noir look to it, and it is just, every single frame is striking. And it's kind of weird, and it's its own thing, and has its own kind of sense of pace and style. I mean, Lawton wasn't afraid to kind of just slow the movie down. It's basically kind of like 2 major portions of the movie, and there's kind of like this abbreviated second act where the kids are in a boat going down a river, kind of being stalked by Robert Mitchum's character. And they take the time to have this kind of fairy tale-esque sequence where the little girl's singing in the boat, and the music's playing, and she's singing, and they're going down this dark, mysterious river, and they're going past the landscapes and the nature and the animals and these spider webs in the trees as they're passing them by, and it's the moon. There's like this theme with the moon and Robert Mitchum, kind of like the subtext being like he's like a werewolf. He's a phony. He's a wolf in sheep's clothing. He's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Kind of all the way down to the bottom of the essence of his character. There's nothing redeeming about him. He is a little bit of a caricature in some ways, but an effective one. And one that has purpose. Somebody like Yorgos Lanthimos would could never make something like this. He's too cynical. He's too high on his own supply. He's got his head up his own ass. Like, to be able to really, I think, get down to the essence of things and like tell stories that matter about the human experience, it requires a great deal of humility. A great deal of humility. And I don't think a lot of my generation has any of it. I think it affects their artwork. and their ability to create and the kinds of things that they create. Generally just vapid, pedantic, shallow nonsense, like masquerading as something important. And it's kind of a bummer sometimes, but such is life. Such is life. Oh my God, I've been talking for 25 minutes. I'm continuing on my palate cleansing with my Kino Lorber pickups. I'm going to be watching American Ninja. I know I've seen this when I was a kid, but I can't remember like anything about it. See, there it is, folks. It's my messy house and American Ninja. I don't even know if I'm going to post this, but you have a great night. I'm going to watch American Ninja.